fam? What's going on? Today's video I want to talk about the necessity of an estate and how to operate with that in the economy today. So, if you're not up on it yet, I would advise you to go look up USC, United States Codes, Title 15, Section 3002, all right, which will state that the United States is a federal corporation. Also, in regards to tax purposes, you can look that up as well in United States Code, Title 26. Yeah, United States Codes, Title 26, Section 3121E, lowercase e in parentheses. Title 26, Section 3121E in lowercase parentheses. That's dealing with tax. Title 26 is dealing with income tax. Okay, and if the United States is a federal corporation, that means that all entities within the United States are obligated to pay taxes. All right? Now, if you realize, and you've done some studying, you'll come to the understanding that the United States was established in 1776. 1776. All right? That's when the United States was established. So now, if we're claiming that the United States has had the indigenous peoples of the land under chattel slavery, right, for over, what are you gonna say, 400 and something odd years, 500 years, via transatlantic slave trade, if that's the case, then how is it that the United States drafted in 1779? It's only been, we're in 2016. That's only been about 200 and something odd years, maybe almost like 200 and change. So what the fuck are we talking about when we're talking about 450 years, 500 years of slavery? This shit just happened yesterday. You have to understand, the Christian calendar is not our calendar. We had our own calendar, which is approximately 585 years off of the original incorrect Christian calendar. Two different jurisdictions. Therefore, we existed as indigenous peoples with our own government before the establishment of the United States, which took place in 1776. So what the fuck were we doing before 1776? Christian calendar. You know what I'm saying? Which would establish. So now, since we understand now that the United States was established in 1776, that means before 1776, there was no United States. So who are we dealing with? Who are we making treaties with? You understand? The United States didn't come into play till 1776. So who were we making treaties with? Because at the time, what we know as England was not known as England. It was called Albion. Albion. Right? Albion. Now, we know that Rome didn't fall. It got relocated, right? To a place called Washington, D.C., right? Which exists on paper. It's a 2D formation between the Virgin and Mary. Virginia, Maryland. Right in between those two, you'll see a big phallus in the middle of the Congress Hall, which looks like a obelisk, which is what it is. So you literally have a big erected penis in between the Virgin and the Mary. All right? Figure that one out. So, if we're only been enslaved for about 200 and something odd years, right? Our calendar is off by about 585 years, which equals out to 9. Completion. All right? Give it a year or two off. So, this, what we know today, according to the Christian calendar as 2016, is really 1431. We're in the year 1431, Moorish calendar. Christian calendar, 2016, which is off. So now we're thinking, shit, if something happened in 1431 or in the BC era, we're thinking, shit, it had to traverse from the BC era over into the Common Era, which we start going into the 1800s. But And if you want to verify that, look up the Barbary treaties. All the Barbary treaties. Tunis, Tripoli, Algeria, and Morocco. Look up those Barbary treaties. And they got in parentheses the date in correspondence with the Christian calendar. So when those treaties were signed, approximately, it was about the year, what was it? About 1229. All right, convert that to the Christian calendar, right? Because that happened at the same time, 2 different jurisdictions, going by 2 different calendars. So during the Moorish calendar, that was the year 1229. According to the Christian calendar, that was the year 18 and change. That was in the 1800s. All right, you're going from 1200s to the 1800s. Okay, 12 to 18. That's almost a 600-year difference in terms of time. But that event happened within the same space, different time. That's why we got something called time zones. Over here in Washington Territory, the time zone will be 3 hours in advance, according to the time zone calibrated towards the East Coast. So one thing can happen. Something can happen here, and something is happening over in East Coast at the same exact space, but it's according to 2 different times. So take that concept, right? So when it comes to operating in the now time space, right? I'm going to use a regular example where everyone's familiar with 50 cents. 50 Cent got sued by, I don't know the whole story, I don't really get into all the drama, but 50 Cent got sued by Rick Ross's baby mama, whatever. All right, if that's the story. If it's not, I really don't give 2 shits. 50 Cent got sued by someone. Now, I'm sorry, Curtis Jackson got sued by someone. However, 50 Cent is a company, right? So now, Curtis Jackson does business in the name, right? Or I should say Curtis Jackson is doing business as 50 Cent. So therefore, everything that Curtis Jackson accrues, or maybe I should say Curtis Jackson is the CEO for 50 Cent, right? You would look at 50 Cent as the rapper. That's the image out in the public. But in the private, as a human being, amongst his family, he's just Curtis Jackson. His baby ain't calling him 50. His wife ain't calling him 50. They call him Curtis. His mom ain't calling him 50. His mama call him Curtis. Okay? That's his name. That's his surname, Curtis. So Curtis is doing business as 50 cents. So what happens is there was a lawsuit made out to Curtis. However, Curtis does not own anything because all of the assets that have been accrued, Curtis did it doing business as 50 Cent. So Curtis doesn't own any of the property or the assets. 50 Cent owns it. So therefore, if you're trying to sue Curtis, Curtis ain't got shit to give you. Because all his shit is owned by 50 Cent. Everything he does commercially, commerce-wise, in the public, is done through 50 Cent. So is LL Cool J. I didn't even know his slave name is Todd Smith. That's crazy. So that nigga Todd Smith, right? Brother dark like you and me. African brother. You can tell indigenous, aboriginal, maybe not in mind state. Aboriginal Todd Smith doing business as LL Cool J Inc. You understand? So this is how assets are protected and people can't get really sued for shit because they themselves in the private status don't have no assets. Physically, I'm talking about. Now, commerce-wise, they have a entity, right? They have a personal business. Everything they do is in their business. Okay? Now, if you're and I know a lot of people say don't confuse private and public, but it's a valid claim. Do not ever mix the two. But let's be honest. The fucking corporate US state does this shit on a daily. They're mixing niggas out of their private and public statuses all day long. They're not even following them fucking rules. Right? But what matters at the end of the day is how you constructed your entity and how you constructed your will. The entity or the business comes with a number. No different than a social security number. Except it's called the EIN number, employer identification number. Not employee, see, because the social security is for employees, aka slaves. Right? Your social security is for slaves. Employer identification number is for masters. You understand? So if you're a master of your ship, if you're Noah of the ark, okay, then you will leave behind a will and testament the same way God did, or the Creator did. You leave a will and testament, okay? Within that will and testament, oh shit, did I pass 43? I didn't even realize I was out here that fast. Crazy. But if you, maybe lose my train of thought. Right, so Social Security is for the slaves, employer identification numbers for masters, okay? So that's why you'll see a different type of interaction between people who do business as someone else and people who are actually business owners. The whole aura and the energy is different within the economic society, okay? So you're not supposed to be doing business as, I'm using myself example. I'm not supposed to be doing business as Reginald C. Jules. Reginald C. Jules is not my name. That was a given name. That is not my original name. That is not my original untarnished name before European interference. That is not my name. So, rather than me doing business as Reginald Jules, right? I nationalized that entity. I threw the L on that. So when it comes to the state ID on my GIN card, it's Reginald L, right? So I attach my L and my Bay and my Day and my Al and my Ali to the appellation. So the appellation is on the state. It's in the records. I don't really fuck with the Social Security. I don't want the card anymore. I don't need it. It's voluntary. I gave the shit back. Told them put it in their records. I voluntarily came. I dropped the card back off to you. You dispose of it. I want nothing more to do with it. That's simple. I really didn't need to file up an affidavit. I mean, if you want to, you can do that just for your own personal records. But she jotted down in her records that, hey, I voluntarily came in. I gave the card back. I want nothing to do with it. If they ask me about it, I tell them the same thing. So, once you register or do business, right, in your own entity as yourself, right? So I created a business for myself. It's from scratch. I made it. No one else made it. It's outside the United States because I'm outside the United States, right? So my business isn't obligated for taxes. What I'm saying is you use your EIN the same way you'll go around and use your social for everything. So you take your EIN and where it would say for you to apply a social, you will apply your EIN in its place. Because they'll always ask for EIN/social. All right, so you can't get those two things confused. You always got to be on track with those things. Always got to be on track. Okay? And that's how you conduct a society. If I go to a dealership to go buy a car, I'm buying a car in my estate or in my business. I'm not buying a car on my Social Security. I'm doing it through my EIN. All right? I'm doing it through my EIN. And then once that happens, through my EIN, guess what? It's automatically in my trust. Automatically outside the United States because of how I set it up. And I've drew up my will. Everyone, listen, do you have a will and testament right now that's drawn up, that you filed in the recorder's office? If the answer is no, you are in shit. You are still in Rome. You need a will and testament because the Creator left a will and testament. Why should you not do the same? Everyone needs a will and testament. That's your estate, your will and testament. Who am I? Who do I represent? Who are my babies? Who do I want my assets to go to when I'm gone? It's called a will. You leave behind a will and testament to give direction to how you want things to occur or happen after you transition. If you don't have a will left behind, when you die, all your property gets placed right back to the state. Because the state owns a Social Security number, which you bought all those entities in. Which you bought all those assets in. So they're property of the state. Why? Because you're doing business in another man's name with a Social Security card that you yourself did not create from scratch. Therefore, anything you buy in that name will never be yours unless you do business as yourself. Marinate on that for a little bit, fam. Peace.